Hey everybody. I thought I'd kind of address a few questions I know a lot of people want to ask me and have been asking, just not just here at YouTube, but at various forums and all that. One of the questions somebody asked me at one of the forums to start out with here, one of the questions somebody asked me at one of the forums is, why am I going to keep subscribing to the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book when I have plainly stated that I am not, and I repeat, not going to be opening up any of the issues, taking them out of the plastics and all that. Well, it's like I've said before, folks, and I've said this again, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm one of those people that, from a standpoint, it's kind of like in the middle. I kind of like to see how things play out. And for me, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm letting things play out. Now, yes, I do read up on the summaries, so I can kind of get an idea of exactly what's happening, but I can't give a review on summaries, but I can give opinions. And that's why I still keep my opinion deal going. So I can give opinions. And again, the way I look at it is not, I can't give any positive reviews to something like this, but I can give opinions, and that's what this is all about. Besides, I've already come out and stated that when it's all said and done, it's all settled in some way, it's going to make both sides, I guess, satisfied in some way or another. Only then will I open up the issues and probably do a massive review. And that massive review may be divided in many parts when it occurs, because right now I only have the 15-minute time limit on the YT. But anyway, that's why I'm still going to subscribe. And you got to think of it this way too. I'm not the only one out in this world, if you will, I'm not the only one out and about in this world that subscribes to comic books but doesn't open them when they get them. Sometimes there are those that will get the issues in the mail, but they'll take an issue and either using a thumbtack or using a thumbtack, or maybe let's say an 8x10 frame, or whatever you want to call it, or a 5x7 frame, depending on how big a comic book is. I can't really know. But depending on that, what they'll do sometimes is they'll hang, either through thumbtacks or even through a frame, they will hang the issue on the wall for a decoration. But that doesn't mean they probably won't go out and read the issue. You see, there is a strong chance they'll do that. In fact, there was one person who told me on the I think he was here on the YT, that they would do something similar. They would get it in the mail, but they would not open it. Instead, they would go to a comic shop and read the comic and then just put it back. Heck, I'm pretty sure when the death of Superman happened in 1993, in the early and mid-90s, when that occurred, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who subscribed to Superman, didn't want to open up the issue when it came, but instead went to a comic shop and read the issue just to see what was going to happen. So again, this is why. But again, that's not me. What I'm doing is I'm waiting until this whole thing is settled, where it satisfies both sides to the point that it's like, okay, we now know where you're going with this. We now understand. Only then will I probably open all the issues up for a massive review. Now speaking of the comic itself, there's one person at the Sega forums, and I think Sonic Stadium, and I think some other ones called Flyboy Fox 11. Now, Flyboy Fox 11 has been very vocal, just like Laser X5 has been, and a few others here on YouTube and at those other sites. They've been very, very vocal about what has happened currently in the book. In fact, Flyboy has come out and said that he wouldn't be surprised that this whole story, this whole situation that's going on right now comes to an end a lot sooner than the head writer plans for it to be. In other words, he's thinking that come 238 and 239, that is when, well, basically between 238 and 240, let's just put it that way, that is when this whole situation in the comic book will be sort of settled. And you know, he may have a point. I'm sure a lot of people here on the YT, like Jonathan 83X and Ezekiel and Digimon, if you will all agree possibly with that. Maybe not. But you know, they could have a point. But I was thinking about this the other day, and to answer the question as to do I think the same way, and to answer that question as the question of do I think that could happen, do I believe it could end a lot sooner than we expect. Well, yes, I do believe it could end a lot sooner than we expect. I mean, when you take a look at Endgame and what Ken Penders tried doing there, I mean, if he had been allowed to do what he wanted, then the Sally character, she wouldn't be here right now. She wouldn't even be in the comics anymore. But because of the fact that he got pressured by fans and by Sega to keep her alive, only then did he have to change his plans. Now, could history repeat itself? Yes, history could repeat itself. You know, and the way, and again, I was thinking about this the other day when I was asking myself, could it happen? Could Flyboy be right? And I thought to myself, you know, he could be right, but only if Sega of America, the overall Sega Corporation, America and Japan, get pressured enough by fans to the point that Sega will probably have to call up Archie Comics, call up Ian Flynn and say, you know what? That plan you had, or you're currently doing, that story arc, scrap it. Do something with it. Turn it into a dream or something. I don't care. That to me, folks, would be the only way that this story arc would end soon. That's the only way. And I'm not saying it will. I'm just, like I said, I'm one of those people in the middle that's just letting it play out and see what happens. And again, I believe that's the only way that could happen, though. Another way it could happen is if sales for the comic drop. Now, yeah, when somebody subscribes to 6 months worth of issues, or even a year's worth of issues, or the 13th issue free, then yeah, sales go up. When the comic flies off the shelves, if you will, or gets sold at bookstores and comic shops, yeah, sales go up. And if sales go up with the current situation in the comic, then yeah, you know, the story arc's going to continue, and even though many fans would hope he would get canned, the head writer himself is going to continue on. However, even if sales are kind of like in between, even if they're kind of like 50-50, you know, the head writer may still continue on. And here's what I mean by 50-50, because I was thinking about this. What I mean by 50-50 is we all know that Archie Comics doesn't just get part of the profits, they also share them with Sega. Now, like I said, if the profits are up on the comic, then there's no doubt the comic will continue on, and so will the story arc, and so will the head writer. But if it's kind of like in between, 50-50, where it's like they're not getting as much as they would expect, then yeah, the head writer may still stay on, and the story arc may still continue, if not being on a more shorter leash at that time. However, profits and sales, if they go down and both sides don't get enough money, especially the company that the franchise was created from or created by doesn't get enough money from their share, if you will, then things may change. You see, it's not just what fans would want or fans pressuring, but it's also the sales deal. So if sales drop tremendously or drop in a way that Sega doesn't get, their share of the booty, then things may change. But that's the only way these are the only ways to answer the question of if I agree with what Flyboy Fox has to say. Then yes, the ways I mentioned, either it's pressuring Sega overall, the overall Sega Corporation, whether it's sales dropping tremendously for both sides to where both sides can't get any money, then yeah, that would be the only way the issue or the story arc would come to an end sooner than expected, and possibly someone like Ian Flynn could be let go. But I'm not saying that's going to happen, and I'm not saying it won't. It all depends on what happens in the next year or so. Probably the next 6 months, 4 to 6 months actually. I mean, it's kind of like when you take a look back in the old days of, let's say, professional wrestling, WWF-wise, according to numerous reports, you never know how good your year is going to be or where you're going to be elevated to and all that, or what your status is going to be until you get that big payoff from the big 4 pay-per-views. And that's the only way. Now, another thing that I'm pretty sure fans have been wondering about ever since I posted the video a few days ago. They're probably wondering why I would go out of my way and pay money to have these framed. These are actually downloaded. These were actually downloaded from Google. I Googled and found these online, and you can probably find them a lot of places. But I found some good high quality ones, and I downloaded them because the thing is, I just wanted to treat myself to something. And the thing is, the pictures, I mean, 225, it's the first gatefold cover for the comic, and right now it's currently the last time you're going to see the characters together like that for a while, especially after what people have said has occurred in 231. And this one right here is actually drawn, if you will, by the former head writer / artist of the comic before Ian came around, so that's why that's there too. But this is why I do it, because it shows that not only am I a fan, but just think about this. In the future, you look back in time, people are going to probably look at those and say, hey, I remember when that happened, or I remember when that was released. It's nice to have them framed. And I'm not the only one that does that. I've heard that somebody at another site, and I'll talk about this in part 2.